This is a call to order for the Independent Ethics Board meeting, 15th, 2024. Please take roll call.
Kirsten Costa, Patrick Kelly,
Here.
Carlos Ray,
Here.
Rika Calhoun,
Here.
Adam Commissar,
Here.
Brian Smith.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. The board members are present here at City Hall along with members of the public. With the assistance of the Communications Department and Information Technology Department, this meeting is live streamed on the Ethics Board website, and we're recording it for future reference. There's a delay with the online communications, and we should all be patient. As always, we thank those members of the City of Tallahassee for their support. For those attending the meeting online, please make sure your microphones are muted. We ask the public to email ethics@tallahasseegovernment.com if they wish to speak online on the agenda or non-agenda items. Those who have submitted their names will be allowed to speak as scheduled. While the meeting is in progress, please do not speak during the board's discussion. We have set aside 2 places on the agenda for the public to speak. For those of you who wish to make a public statement, please complete a speaker's guest form and forward it to the administrative specialist, Ms. Tasker Leverson Green. Be sure to state what you wish to speak about on the form. Public speakers will be given up to 3 minutes in accordance with the board's bylaws. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 3 meetings agendas before us from 3 previous meetings. Is that accurate, Director?
Yes, sir.
Okay. February 20th, March 19th, and April 3rd. Has everybody had a chance to look at those minutes and read them? And are there any questions? Can we vote on them all at once? We have a motion?
Motion to approve all the minutes for April 3rd, February 20th, and March 19th.
Motion by Carlos Ray,
Second.
seconded by Adam Kosamar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Public comment on agenda items. Do we have any speakers?
No.
No speakers. Agenda item number 7, Ethics Office Report.
Yes, and before you do that, we just wanted to welcome Mr. Attorney Brian Smith to the board. He was appointed by the City Commission. We received a confirmation letter today, so it's fully official. And his term expired on the 31st, so this will be beginning of a new term, or would be like filling a term.
You completed your term, right? Yes.
No, I didn't quite. It was October. My term expired in December.
So,
Okay, yes.
so this
it's January.
Okay, so this will be a new term. Okay.
So he's completing the term to the end of the year?
No, he completed that term, so this is the beginning of a
Okay.
3-year term.
And Mr. Brian Smith, welcome to the board. I understand this is a deja vu moment.
Yeah, and I made one mistake on the email. I said Albany, Georgia, and he told me where he worked wasn't that small. Decatur, Georgia, so.
Yeah,
It's a big
a long
difference.
time ago.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Can you give him a hand for coming back again? I appreciate it. Ethics Office Report.
Summary report. This is, I would say this is a snapshot. Since March 12th, we conducted virtual training as we do with new employees, which basically means that we do it through WebEx. We responded to requests for advisory opinions that you will see in today's agenda. We continued development of the annual ethics training for city employees and updating the ethics guide. And I think the vice chair for his input into that training. We're probably going to use two of your scenarios. We're using a lot of the concept that he developed from ethics training for this year's course. So I think that's going to work real well. And I have tasked her with updating the ethics guide on her own so she can look at it with a fresh view. So she's getting rid of redundancy and she's gotten rid of a number of pages already and she's making it more relevant. You'll see that next month. We spoke to city commissioners concerning authorization to receive whistleblower complaints, conducted an informational session for the board, followed up on recommendations by the Charter Review Committee, and that was before the city commission. We began preparation for this meeting, conferred with the board chair, maintained the Facebook page, and responded to ethics complaints. Since the budget report doesn't really show what we spent, and I always want to make sure you're aware of what we're doing, I gave you a list here of items we purchased in March. One was a box of ink pens from me. Charger and backup battery. We had a camera, but the way the battery works is that it keeps dying even when you take it out of the camera. So I bought a backup camera so we wouldn't have a problem. City cell phone service, that's just routine. Legal services for February, and that is unusually high because he and I spent a lot of time downtown trying to deal with 7014 and 601. And if nothing else, well, we did make an impact and we've been well versed, and he'll talk about that in just a little bit. We renewed the Grammarly subscription so I can continue to make y'all think I can write. She has a subscription, I have a subscription. We had one camera case that ended up being too small, so we returned that. And then the software that we use to develop the course is an annual subscription of $1,100. And even though that might seem like a lot, with all the resources we put together, we're saving ourselves anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 every time we do an online course by having these resources. So you have that with regard to what we spent, and then you have the overall budget, which shows we have a balance of $240,034. Any questions about the budget or expenses? Okay. If not,
Let me just, if I could jump in,
sure.
people know what that, I'm sure most are, but I think it's important to articulate that development of software for $1,099, the drop in the bucket
Mhm.
for what we would pay professional ethics training consultants to come in here and train all city employees. So the great thing about this electronic web-based training is it reaches a lot of people for a low cost. Everything I've heard, I don't know if everybody's heard anything different. The employees love it. So keep doing that job. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have a number of complaint calls, and I'll tell you, at one point, I went home on a Friday, and when I came back, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 calls. So between that and the advisory opinions, and the advisory opinions have been what we want. Complaint calls haven't been, but at least people know we're here and they're reaching out to us. So that's a positive. I want to spell out this first one. This is one where the complainant, let me see, I've looked at it while I spoke portion of this person complained that the city commission was familiar with vendors who were going to benefit from their vote. And the complaint was that these vendors gave money to their campaigns, but the law allows for that. And I think that is practical. So in response to the complaint, so I explained that to the respondent and to the caller, excuse me, and we're recommending that one be closed. The next one, a former employee complained about the way she was being terminated. She was OPS, so we explained to her that they didn't have to have a reason to let her go. And she did something that she shouldn't have, so that was that. But we talked to her. I spoke to an employee and learned that she was OPS, explained city could terminate her at will. I explained also that the incident she described were policy issues and concerns that not fall within the board's jurisdiction because she wanted to make a complaint. But they were not things that we would address. Recommend closing. Third one, we received a call from Apalachicola concerning the official in Apalachicola. I left a message explaining that Apalachicola is not in our jurisdiction. The next one, the person called 2 days in a row. The primary concern was that it was against the city manager, and it was that the city was giving money to Tallahassee Reports, who, in her view, runs a smear campaign against 2 city commission members at odds with the mayor and the city manager. She stated that they also gave money to Blueprint, but they were anonymous. There was no way for me to contact her, and so I went and looked at Tallahassee Reports, and I saw that there were advertisements by Blueprint and advertisements by the city. So I can only assume at best that's what she was referring to. And the city is free to advertise to whomever they want to advertise, with politics aside. So we recommend closing that one. On 318, a caller from Ormond Beach was trying to reach the state ethics commission. I gave the phone number. 320, the caller stated he was mistreated by a domestic violence advocate and sent a letter to the ethics office. It was not our office. He was referring to the state office. And so I gave information for the state office. 4-4, the caller left a message stating that she wanted to report a breach of privacy by the city of Tallahassee. I called her. By the time I called her back, she said the issue, she had talked to a supervisor and a supervisor, and the issue was resolved. Again, on 4-4, the caller said he was a reporter from the Sun Sentinel requesting a comment from the city about Officer Riley of TPD in the DUI case. The call was cut short before he could give his phone number. It doesn't matter because I would have not responded to that anyway. 4-7. The caller complained about a neighbor dumping trash on his property. I referred the call to a manager in community beautification and waste. And the manager says he contacted the individuals residing at both addresses. He contacted me back to let me know. 4-5, the caller said he was a 42-year-old Navy veteran who had been stopped and searched on various occasions, was concerned about the way he was treated. And I spoke with the police department and turned this over to internal affairs, and they were addressing. So those are the complaints, and then we're recommending closing.
Second. All right, there's been a motion to close these and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay, general update number 8. Only thing I have is that we're still waiting to hear from FSU. I'll probably reach out to, plan on reaching out to Richard Herring and see if he could prod and get them to move on that. They haven't, I guess they're tired of me, so they haven't responded. They were working on it, but it's been a long time, so I feel Richard can prod them and help get somebody to fill that position. That's all I have on general update.
Next is the legislative update.
Yes, so I think for those that were here last month, this is a repeat, but there were 2 bills that we were monitoring during the legislative session, both passed. I'm gonna probably take them out of order here because one has been signed. So House Bill 601 was the Citizen Review Board bill that's received a lot of press coverage. That was signed, I think, on Friday. So it is now the law, and it generally provides July 1st municipalities cannot create citizen review boards. Any that are already created have to be disbanded, and it provides very limited ways in which misconduct of police officers can be reviewed and consistent with the Police Officer Bill of Rights. The concern that we had is that there is language in the bill, and I could draw your attention to it. If yes, it's, I guess, page 3 of the bill, but page 20 of this item, I guess.
The topic page, page 20.
And then if you look at the lines, it's the language that is in question is lines 58 through 61. It says a political subdivision may not adopt or attempt to enforce any ordinance relating to either of the following. Skip to B, civilian oversight of law enforcement. We understood that. That, I think, was the main intent of the bill. It says other provision about receipt, processing, or investigation by any political subdivision of complaints of misconduct by law enforcement or correctional officers. This is the language that nobody really knows what it means, whether it would include an ethics complaint or not. I know we spoke to a fellow ethics commissioner, director this morning about how other jurisdictions are handling it, and everybody's just kind of waiting to see what happens. So I know that we did speak to somebody with the Police Chiefs Association who said that it was their interpretation that it did not apply. I think the staff analysis seems to imply that it would not apply to us, but the plain language is the plain language. So I guess we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it. And I think really at the end of the day, I don't think we've ever received a complaint against a police officer. So we really don't need to make a determination until that time comes, but it's still something worth looking into. And it was something that we watched all session. The main issue that we dealt with was this Senate Bill 7014. The bill is still enrolled and just sitting in the legislature and has not been transmitted to the governor yet. I don't know why. It's just kind of sitting there. So when it does, he'll have 15 days to act upon it. This is the bill that initially started out as, I think we refer to it as the Latvala bill. There was a former state senator who being investigated, and the case dragged on for years, and then a settlement was reached, but the commission rejected the settlement, and then it went back, and then the witnesses didn't want to appear. So then the whole case just imploded, and it's kind of embarrassing to the state commission. So they had this bill that was going to set timelines on how these issues be handled. It looked to be a very, very good bill. Then when the bill reached the floor of the Senate, an amendment was filed the afternoon before the bill was to be heard on second reading on a special order calendar that affected local ethics boards and commissions. And it essentially would say that we would not be able to, well, all complaints would have to be sworn. We could not receive the anonymous complaints or the phone calls that Dwight receives, that we could no longer act upon those. It would have to be a sworn complaint based on personal knowledge, not based on hearsay. There was a big discussion on the floor on what does hearsay mean. We were concerned, meaning us and the other local boards, that hearsay would mean with all the lawyers in the room, the legal term for hearsay. But there is a case dealing with the election code where the exact language from the elections code was dropped into the ethics code. And there is a case, I think it's in the 4th DCA, that says in that case, hearsay doesn't mean the legal definition of hearsay, it just means gossip. So that made us feel a little better when the bill was going through, but still, it does create that burden. And really, at the end of the day, it still is going to require a sworn complaint. But the problem is, if it was hearsay, you would never get a complaint again. You would actually have to see somebody, they would have to witness somebody taking a bribe or somebody doing something. They couldn't look at an inspector general report and make a determination. They couldn't look at a police report and make a determination. So at least that corrected. The real issue is the self-initiation. We are no longer on non-criminal complaints permitted to self-initiate any complaints. So a lot of the work we've gotten, people come to us concerned about maybe some form of retaliation in the workplace. They don't want to put their name forward. They bring to our attention an issue, we look into it. And a lot of times, we've dismissed it because we've determined there's been no legal sufficiency to move forward. We will no longer be permitted to do that. We can no longer do the self-initiated complaints. There is an active effort to try to get the governor to veto the bill. I don't know how successful that will be. That there were some concerns about how the process in which it took place. It was amended on the floor of the Senate, never discussed in a committee. It then rolled over from special order. They waived the rules to roll over to third and passed it. Second reading and third reading and passed it all in the same moment. Went over to the House, went to a committee. Committee did not add this language where the public could interact. Questions of the bill sponsor were asked, are you going to put that language on the floor? Can you commit to not doing it? He wouldn't commit to it. Of course, then it went to the floor. He then brought the language out and they added it to the bill. The bill bounced back and forth between the chambers on some little issues, but eventually it passed. It's kind of going to be a wait and see to see how this affects us. I think for us, it's not going to be as harmful as some of the other jurisdictions. I think Miami-Dade will probably be decimated. And it's going to have some real effects. There's a former state senator who served on the Miami City Commission, who the governor just removed from office a few months ago because he was allegedly taking bribes. That case initiated from a self-initiated case of the Ethics Commission in Miami-Dade. Once they self-initiated and saw that there was something there, they gave it to the state attorney. The state attorney brought charges and he's now waiting trial. They've had a couple of other issues like that. Now those issues can no longer be brought. So somebody was going to have to come forward, sign a sworn complaint, and then they could look into that. So that's the challenge. But like I said, we don't do as much as Jacksonville. I think will take a big hit, and Miami-Dade is going to take a big hit on that one. So, but there are some folks that are trying to reach out to the governor and say, this is bad politics. You should veto this. But like I said, it hasn't even made it to his desk yet, so we don't know what's going to happen. But we'll keep you posted. So that's all I have on those.
Any questions? Oh, go ahead.
And we are, even though we don't know, I'm committed to sitting down with city attorney. That's over there. I don't want to talk about it like she's invisible. We committed, we spoken and committed to sit down late next week to talk about both of these bills and how we think they should be interpreted to try, where we disagree, we're going to disagree, but where we can be on the same page, we're going to try to do that. So we'll have more to report. And we've discussed some other things that we'll bring back next time. The last part is that there are probably going to be some implications that people didn't think about when they put this in place. Because there are multiple examples of where we might get something or something is alleged and we're discussing it. We've said, for example, I told Joe not to say it, so he didn't say it yet, but so he'll fuss at me later. But we've said that we will not open the case or move forward with the case around election time. Well, if we get an allegation around election time, do we hold it or do we go ahead and dismiss it, at which point it becomes public? And it could be a legitimate allegation, but we don't have the authority to investigate it. And as things are right now, we can clear a person's name if there is an allegation. After the bill goes through, they're just going to have to deal with it in public. And they're going to have to deal with a lot more in public without us being there to say, we investigated and there's no claim here. So they may not have seen that as a benefit, but that has been a benefit because it's been addressed and everybody could move on. And there are gonna be other implications that we'll talk about as we go through this and figure it all out.
Any other questions on the House or the Senate bills? All right,
Say too much.
seeing none. We move on to the charter review update.
Charter review, as we stated last time, the charter review committee, John and I attended their second to the last meeting. We made a presentation. Mr. Payne mentioned our priorities, which was jurisdiction whistleblower. They came back at the next meeting and ultimately voted unanimously to recommend those to the city commission. At the city commission meeting last Wednesday, it seems like longer than that. Last Wednesday, we made a presentation. There was a long discussion on both of these. The city commission voted to put the jurisdiction, and this would not be for employees, it's just for city officials, but when they're serving on outside boards, and that's better defined than I'm stating it, because it's talking about government and not just, Girl Scouts, all that good stuff. But when they're on outside boards, they're still under our jurisdiction. The city commission voted 4-1 in favor of putting that on the referendum. So we did that one.
I think she switched at the last minute. Was it unanimous?
You're right, she did switch and it became, well, I'm doing like them now. Yes, they did ultimately make it unanimous. So that one did pass and that was good. They talked about whistleblower and it looked like they were gonna kick the can again. And I just have to tell you, I was talking with John about it afterwards. And I said, John, I'm glad they didn't kick the bucket. I meant kick the can. But Commissioner Diane Williams-Cox mentioned that she had spoken to me and that I had emphasized that we needed to get an answer. And because I told them, Charter says we make a recommendation. It's their responsibility to answer it. And that they have the last word. We're willing to live with that, but they need to give us a response. And so she emphasized that they needed to give us an answer. They did kick the can until the next commission meeting. So it's coming back. In the meantime, the Inspector General offered an alternative, which would be to make him independent. And so when the item goes before the commission, it will say they could fill this gap by making him independent. But there's a caveat because it doesn't cover his staff. They could fill the gap by giving us authority. They could fill the gap by giving him authority over the city commission and us over his staff, or they could do nothing. Those are going to be the alternatives. So we're working together to write that up so that they can put that on the agenda tomorrow or next Wednesday. And that's where we are. So we'll see where it goes next Wednesday, and we'll try not to let them kick the can.
Any questions about the charter review committee or last week's commission meeting?
I have one question. So ultimately, if they don't give us a commitment and no answer, or they're just not going to do it, that loophole will remain in place, infinitum.
Some would say no answer will be the answer. I agree with that. I disagree with that because I think they have responsibility to give an answer. I think that's required in the charter. And for whatever reason, whether it's political or whatever, their response, that's what they're there for. They serve the citizens and they have to be brave enough to stand by whatever they decide. So that's why I pushed it and until you tell me not to.
Yes, if you're going to be brave enough to ask for a raise, you can be brave enough to answer a question.
Yes. Well spoken.
Next is our advisory opinions. We have 3 of those.
Yes, so start with the first one, which is 2024-04. Was requested by a woman who is a covered individual. And she was concerned that she might violate the provision dealing with the solicitation or acceptance of gifts if she were to attend a conference that was going to be held here in Tallahassee. So and we did provide her with a brief kind of in writing. This is what our opinion is here. It's not been adopted by the board, but you can show, because you can see the conference was February 29th. So time was of the essence there. But there's a group called Enviro Workshops. And I think I provided some links down here to learn about them, but they market themselves as being one of the largest providers of workshops for environmental professionals around the country and actually internationally. They tend to go into communities. They hold these workshops where people are able to learn about the newest technology that will assist them in the workplace. And the conferences are typically funded through donations, which do include some individuals that do business with the City of Tallahassee, therefore making them city vendors. So the question was, by attending this conference, would she be inadvertently taking an indirect gift from that city vendor, which is a violation? We stated that it was not a violation. The reason being is that it was made available to all similarly situated individuals. I think at the bottom of page 1, it says that should provide a continuing education to environmental professionals. General, provide lunch. All attendees were able to attend free, not just I see, but anybody there. And they did market themselves. It's an event with consultants, regulators, responsible parties, attorneys, developers, and vendors. So it's really just open to anybody who wants to attend. So based on the fact that one, the vendor was giving money to this other group, not her directly, but also even more significantly, it was being offered to everybody who was in the same situation as she was. We found that that would not be a violation of the Tallahassee Ethics Code. Do we want to vote on them separately, or would you prefer?
We can go separately just in case if there's any issues. So does anyone have any questions on vendor opinion report? Seeing none, does anyone open to accept it?
So moved.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded by Ray and Mr. Kelly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Okay. Next is 2024-05. The nerd in me got a little excited because I think this is the first time we've ever dealt with the disclosure or use of non-public information. So, hey, we're branching out. But this individual withheld their name. They claimed that they would be a covered individual under the local definition. The individual had been invited to join an LLC, a limited liability company, that would retain clients who would do business with the city and receive funding from the city. And then that LLC would receive a percentage of that money, which then would pass through to this covered individual. So they wanted to know if that was a violation. So I did focus on the issue of misuse of public position, as well as the non-public information. And the non-public information was not alleged in the facts, but I did just put it in here just to make sure we had a belt and suspenders approach to the issue. But believe it or not, this would not violate the local ethics code. But I do point out that it would almost surely violate the state ethics code. In 2019, we made a proposal to the city commission on language that we felt should be in the local ethics code. We did bring language consistent with the state, doing business with one's agency, as well as conflicting employment or contractual relationship. The city commission did not want to include those in the local ethics code. So under our ethics code, there's really nothing we could do with this situation. But as I do point out to this person, they've received this, I believe, is that just because you could do it under our ethics code doesn't mean you should go out and do it, because the state ethics code could get you. And then we also do throw in some just, some extra language about how there's an appearance of impropriety that they should also be concerned with. We stated that it would be permissible under the state code, with caveats. We said that based on the information that you gave us, wasn't a whole lot, it would be permissible. However, if you do anything that appears you're putting your thumb on the scale to help the clients of your LLC, well, then you've crossed a line. So I do have language in here that it is the responsibility of this inquirer to ensure that they don't cross the lines that are laid out here. So any action that they take, and we don't know whether this person has any control over the funding, whether they would have any input in it. We didn't receive that type of information. So I just kind of put these issues out there so they would know that that's something they need to be cognizant of and make sure that they don't cross any lines that they're not supposed to cross. We also talked about the non-public information. The non-public information, we originally, it applied to all employees for the city. I think about 2 years ago, maybe, the city commission amended the ordinance, so now it's only covered individuals. But since this person's a covered individual, I included it. But I said if there is something to the effect, like if you know that funding is going to be made available to the public, but it's not been made known to the public, you're a member of this LLC and you call your client and say, hey, funding source is coming down the pike, start getting your ducks in a row so we can apply, then they would have violated the local code. So I wanted to address that issue as well. So we did say, based on the limited facts that we had and the lack of the contractual relationship prohibition in our code, we said that technically you could do it, but be real careful because you're walking through a minefield. And so that's the opinion.
And actually, I told him, we recommend you not do it and I basically told him, if you do it with the city, you're setting yourself up. Because it won't take much for an employee to say, you're violating it. Plus, it's like, you can cross the street, but the minute you jaywalk, you violated the ordinance. So, cross the street, everybody's letting you cross the street, but the minute you jaywalk, the minute you use it to benefit yourself, then all of that changes. So,
Why have the temptation?
right.
Because under the new rules, if nobody personally witnesses you benefit yourself, nobody can do anything.
That's true too. We should rewrite this.
I mean, it was an
Wait a couple months.
Yeah, it was like really put in here to test whether we actually read these things. I mean, this is madness. I guess my question would be, do we have a duty to provide these? Because I get so much heartburn about us providing this. Is there an avenue where, rather than us say, hey, we're assuming you're not doing anything wrong, can we write them back and ask for affirmative because you say, like, we don't have all this information, so we're going to assume you're doing everything right and then saying it's okay. Can we write back to the anonymous requester and say, we need you to provide more information about, is this going to happen? Is this going to happen? And then at least we have affirmative representations from them that they are not going to do any of the things that we're here just assuming they're not going to do. Because I just see this as something that somebody's going to take this and run with it one day, and this is going to be the defense to any self-dealing ethics complaint.
I had the same concern, and from a layman's standpoint,
Somebody
we've
got.
approved them doing things. We've approved them doing it.
I can't believe somebody's gotten to the level where they're a covered individual and either A, still wants to go into this business venture, or B, thinks it's appropriate to ask us whether they should go into this business venture. And my other idea was, do we not have anything in our code about appearance of impropriety that is like, can an appearance of impropriety be so glaring that we actually advise you that it's a violation?
But
Because I-
well, appearance isn't a violation, so we can only tell them it's, you know, it could hurt the city's reputation. And, you know, we did do that and hurt their own reputation. But that's as far as we can go with appearance, because that in and of itself is just a bad decision.
No, but if I could chime in, when I sat down to write this, I assumed it was gonna go the other direction.
We both did.
I said, there is no way that this is permissible. And I struggled so much with this thing. And I said, how do I get there? How do I get there? Because the misuse position deals with their action as a city employee. And I think I put that in here. It's like, if they're just doing things they shouldn't be doing as a private individual, as a member of this LLC, our misuse doesn't really get there. But as soon as they cross that line as a city employee and do something they shouldn't have, then it triggers. But yeah, I will say, I was twisting and, you know, like a pretzel doing this thing, because I didn't know, I never expected I was going to get to this conclusion when I sat down. But as far as can we get more information? Yes, we can. If you would prefer to come back with more information and further analysis, that's always an option if the board chooses.
Thoughts? Do we want to table and get more information, or go based off of the recommendation that we do strongly recommend against the inquirer taking such action?
In this case, what would it change if we got more information about this individual? If it's just saying, I'm just thinking about it, there was no obligation for them saying, yeah, I'm gonna do it, or, you know, to self-incriminate themselves. Like, okay, I want to make sure we're still a resource to help people who stay out of trouble and not conduct an investigation or front end. It's like, here's a situation I'm in. I just want to make sure that we're not with an issue and also we go almost a full investigation on them. Because that's not the point of these advisory opinions. The advisory opinion is to help them stay up. Like, here's where you're treading lightly. You're walking a thin line here. If we go back, it's like, okay, what are you doing this? When did you meet with this person? Or just, if you're going to go investigation mode, that may, people will be more concerned about coming to us for questions, asking, you know, for permission rather than forgiveness. So I think nothing's going to change. We get more information. We tell them don't do it. Essentially, it's like, well, the code is not. Our code could be a little tighter, but as far as you're exposing yourself to other issues as well on state level, so I think it's fine the way it is at this point.
I would say that I think the information we would get is, do they have any role in the distribution of the funds or the determining the eligibility of the funds? Because that was not information that I received.
Will that change your recommendation? Right, have this opinion out there and have it to go sit.
It wouldn't, because
Yeah, because if they say, well, I'm not putting my thumb on the scale, I'm just doing my job, it's because my client's got all the money, it's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
That would be.
Wouldn't that create a recusal situation for them on that decision? Say that my job is where I have to make a decision about a pot of money because it's my job at the city, but I know one of the applicants is also working with my LLC. At that point, I can't ethically make that decision.
that's
If I
how,
wasn't elected and it was a vote about giving money out, it would be a recusal because I would be personally enriching.
that sounds like a policy. They have policies in place. And I don't know if in that particular area, but I know in some places they have policies where they have to document things like that. I can't remember that level. And we could look into that.
And there's outside employment policies that we don't venture into. It's not in our wheelhouse, but that is something they would have to, they probably should be aware of those. I'm assuming they know, but,
But I think this also just highlights the gap, because that would represent a continuous and frequently recurring conflict. And that would be obvious at the state level, that wouldn't be permissible. But because it's allowable, then there's not there's not a prohibition at the city level. I think it just highlights that gap.
Now, that is something if the board wished to address, we could make a recommendation to the city commission to put that language in to prevent something like this from taking place at the local level, even though it's prohibited in the state. But if we wanted to do something more stringent, where people aren't able to do business with the city or assist others, or have a contractual relationship that is tied to their employment, we could do that as well. Like I said, we had already made that recommendation. It was not accepted. But now that we've actually seen that there may be a need for it, it may be worth, offering it to the city commission to see if they have an interest.
I would think that if we're going to get to the point where we're going to provide this advisory opinion, we would at least simultaneously tell the city commission, hey, we had to issue this advisory opinion because this hole's here. And as you can see in the opinion, we don't like it and don't think it should happen, and you guys should fix the loophole.
What, is it seated commission? Are they the same ones that you made this recommendation in the past to? Or is it different?
I think it was. Yeah, it
It's the same?
was the same commission. But I wouldn't necessarily say that doesn't mean the outcome would change, because I think we brought them a lot. I mean, we brought them the entire ethics code. And I think we did have a misuse of public position, which was really weak at the time. So we strengthened that, and then we added all the other issues. So they did have a lot on their plate at that time, and I think they felt, we're doing a lot. That's really not that big of a deal. So, but it wasn't like they didn't say, never, over my dead body, we're not doing this. It was just like, we've got so much that we're already working on. We don't see that being that big of a deal. So I don't think it would be, I don't think it would be seen as adversarial or anything like that. I think that we would just bring it to their attention.
I think this may have provided a concrete example of the gap that's currently in place versus just a theoretical idea. We should put this in place, but here's why it should be addressed based on this advisory opinion. There's an issue out there that has to be addressed, and it's a perfect example of why that ordinance should be recommended. So as far as the advisory opinion, I think this is good, but I think we should also coincide that with the recommendation to fix this gap that is captured in the state level.
So if you want to do that, what we could probably do, we're going to, we're discussing, giving us direction to look at two ordinances that need some adjustment actually in their favor. So they could do some things that are consistent with their duties without violating the ethics code. And then we could probably bring this recommendation, whatever we decide to change, at the same time we bring those two, so we have two positives. And, all of them will be on the line of just, we've had experience with these now. So now we're bringing them back to try to fix some things that's wrong.
And they might be surprised with the outcome based on the scenario. They may think, oh, it's obvious, this is what I live in, but.
And they'll get these, we send them these as soon as you approve them. They will get it. We don't do a commentary. And they've asked us not to do that, but they'll get this as soon as you approve it.
Well, and I agree with the comments. I was expecting the same answer that we were all expecting, and was quite surprised that I would have not gotten this one right if I had done a choose your own adventure book. But I do think that maybe even titling this one in particular, when we send it to them, as I'm sure you will be as surprised as we are at the end result of this one, or something to that comment. Or as this loophole may be here, this may be something that we would like to address in the future.
And I want to remind you that you're the board and John could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that's true.
On that.
Yeah.
We have is there a local ban against contingency fee lobbying? As I read this another way, I'm gonna be a company that you're gonna pay, and I'm gonna go to the city and help obtain funds from it, and then not at 10,000 a month or whatever my monthly fee is, whether I win or lose, but I'm actually gonna take a percentage of those funds. So should we be analyzing this as is your LLC going to fit in the definition of lobbying? And is the agreement you've alleged here where you receive a percentage of the funds as compensation, lobbying with a contingency fee, which would be banned under the local agreement?
We got information that would not involve anything that would constitute lobbying. They just know.
How do you get the money out of the city without talking to
Because
them?
they know the money's available and people don't know that it's available.
But then they're using proprietary information that's non-public.
No, but it's public. People just don't know to look for it.
That was my first question is this lobbying under a different name and would it violate the local ban? If it's not lobbying, it's not. My other question would be, when they say municipal funds, is that City of Tallahassee funds or would that also include Blueprint funds?
It was City of Tallahassee funds.
Was there some discussion about what are you guys doing that it doesn't qualify? This lobbying issue was addressed with them. They're aware of the lobbying definition and they're affirmatively representing, we're going to somehow get money out of the city, but we're not going to lobby the city for it.
It almost is like if you were assisting somebody with a grant, writing a grant, they were essentially going to help them just with the application process, that kind of thing, but they wouldn't have any interaction with city officials to help direct the funds. Because then we would get into the misuse problem. And that was where it was just, we're helping people go get this money that we know is available. And they just don't know.
Interesting.
And they have a representative, the LLC is a representative that's helping them through this process, and as a result, the LLC will get a legitimate percentage.
Just ironically, the perfect person for this LLC to hire just happens to be a City of Tallahassee employee or covered individual.
It's LLC.
I don't think there's any question. We don't like it. I agree with Carlos, though. I think that this opinion as it stands is sound based on the analysis. I think we should go ahead and vote on it, but then we should instruct John and Dwight to move forward with approaching the commission on encoding this into our ethics code the way it should be, because it just looks bad. I'm with you. The appearance of impropriety just.
At a minimum, if you're going to allow this type of outside work, have it be where you have to register that you're doing it. So at least there's some public awareness that.
Well, again, there likely is. There likely is a city policy that I would assume probably prohibits this or greatly restricts it, but we don't go into that. We stay in our lane.
Right. They do have to report the other employment. I haven't looked at it beyond that, but they do have to report other employment, and somebody at a high enough level is already aware. So
Do they have to fill out that same form that we do in June? I forget the number.
Financial disclosure?
Yeah, would they have to do something like that?
I don't think so.
probably in this case.
I don't even really know what.
I know more.
What's even weirder about this case is it appears that it's just somebody who's going to help, and then assuming they get the big pot of money, they're going to take a cut out of the pot for whatever help they provided, which makes even the reporting of it a little weirder because it's probably going to be a defunct LLC until one day it gets a big check.
Well, it's a normal function of the LLC on one end, and the normal function of the job on the other. It's the person taking advantage. Probably.
Tony, did you have something to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to say, usually financial disclosure generally is only filed by individuals who have, in the city, who have the ability to expend more than $35,000, that category, unless they are otherwise named in the statute. You know, there's some individuals are actually named as requiring financial disclosure. So our list is somewhat limited. And to John's point, I don't know who this person is, but it's, unless they have one of those titles or are able to spend at that level, they probably do not file financial disclosure. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or comments on?
I guess my only one comment would be, if at all possible, if everybody else liked it, the idea of also including in this that where they say that the LLC will assist private individuals in seeking the funds, that we also include that if you're assisting ever qualifies under this definition of lobbying, you are also in violation. It's just allowing them, I can see somebody coming in and say, I was just assisting. I didn't know that I couldn't go and speak on behalf of the project, because that would be lobbying.
We could, if you'd like to direct me to bring back another draft at the next meeting with some language addressing the lobbying issue, I definitely do.
It just seems to me without that included, somebody could read this, not understand the whole facts and see what they might think is a big lobbying loophole, go through it. We do something to them and they point at this and say, I was assisting. What are you guys talking about?
That has been a complaint by, criticism.
That was my concern, was that people criticize communication as lobbying. Are they just going to start saying that, oh, they allow people to assist, they just don't call it lobbying?
So would you like to?
So I guess I'll make a motion just to bring this back, including some more information that notes that assisting could get into the gray area of lobbying, and if it did, it would also be a violation.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Second, you had two people, so we can.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Smith seconds.
Minutes.
Okay. Next one is a lot easier. That other one. I'm not surprised since the movie was Sixth Sense. But 2024-06, solicitation of gifts, very similar to 04 to some degree. But this is one where it did struggle to some degree. Somebody that works in the energy division of the city was offered as a member of the Florida Municipal Power Agency to attend, it wasn't really a conference, but I couldn't really tell, but it's really, the purpose is to bring folks in to be trained in this newest technology that they're then going to be able to use on the job. So it did appear to be a very beneficial event. The company, Eaton Corporation, which was going to sponsor the training and was going to fly, no, but did they fly? Yeah,
I think it was just hotel.
yeah, just, they did not fly, but the people would come up to their location in Warrendale, Pennsylvania. They would come into this training open to other folks for free. There would be no cost to them to attend this training. And then Eaton Corporation would pay for all of their lodging while they were in town for the event. So I broke this advisory opinion into two pieces, one, the free admission, and two, the lodging. And it's a mixed bag. So as far as it goes on the free admission, I said that it was not a violation of the ethics code. Somewhat similar to the other one, similarly situated. But really, we don't define gift in our local ordinance. We refer to the state statute. And the state statute lists all these different things that are gifts. And they have two that I looked at: preferential rate or terms on a debt, loan, goods, or services, which rate is below the customary rate. But then they also have, where is it? Oh, yeah, entrance fees, admission fees, and tickets to events, performances, or facilities. So I said, is this an admission fee? Does it fall into that? Or is it a preferential rate, which would not be a gift if it's available to all similarly situated government employees or officials, or a rate which is available to similar situated members of the public by virtue of occupation, affiliation, age, religion, sex, or national origin. So I looked in this and I opined that it was the preferential rate definition that prevailed. The reason being is that the entrance fees, admission fees, or tickets, when read together and in context, appear to be something that the donor is purchasing from a third party and passing to the covered individual or employee. instead of them controlling the rate of admission, and just letting somebody in to an event that they're sponsoring and they could charge $100, they could make it free, which in this case, they made it free. So I used that distinction. I did throw a little Antonin Scalia in there to talk about when words are grouped together in a list, they are all to have related meanings. And it was the tickets to events, performances, or facilities that I read that to say, well, that sounds like you're buying it from somebody else. So I went to the first one. So on that issue, I said that it would be permissible. The lodging, however, would not be. There is a provision in the same definition of gift where it says transportation other than that provided to a public officer or employee by an agency in relation to officially approved government business, lodging, or parking. And one, I don't like the way that's written because other than provided by a public officer by an agent, does that only apply to the transportation or does it also apply to the items that follow it in that list? But nevertheless, didn't apply here because the city of Tallahassee is not paying for it. The prohibited donor is paying for it. So I said for that reason, they could not do it. And of course, we've gotten a lot of these types of opinions where we've said there's an easy fix. Have the city pay for it and the city be reimbursed. And as you see the footnote at the bottom of, I guess it's page 15 of this handout, but page 5 of the advisory opinion lists a number of cases from the Florida Commission where they've kind of outlined if you give it to the governmental entity or they pay for it and then you just pay them back, you're covered. So this was a split decision. And they could attend the training without any cost, but they couldn't stay at the hotel without paying for it.
Any questions on number 6?
To approve.
All right, is it a motion? Any seconds?
Second.
Mr. Kelly seconds. All those in favor of advisory opinion 06, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Recommended revisions to the city ordinance.
Okay, so we don't have anything ready for you today. I think we have hopefully a meeting with the city attorney at the end of next week. So we'll be able to fine tune this language, but I think this is something we've all have agreed probably we do need to clean up some definitions in our code. Specifically, it's the covered individual definition dealing with the procurement employee. And I don't think any of you were here when we first did this. Brian was, but I know one of the issues that I always raise is what about the assistant to the person who makes decisions who's running off copies and then handing it out to all people making a decision? Have they played any part in this? Yeah, because it says or preparation process. So I think we wanted to make it real clear that these people have to have some substantial influence, not just a casual relationship to a purchase. I think we've talked about the person with somebody who works in the landscaping department who said, I like the red tractors instead of the green tractors. Okay, now are they a procurement officer because they just said which color they preferred? So I think we wanted to make sure that we didn't cast the net too broadly where we're encompassing people that we didn't intend to do. There was a section where we talk about anybody who's required to file a financial disclosure, including any employee with purchasing authority exceeding $35,000, like we had just discussed. Just to make sure we're safe, I suggest we split that. Separate. Yeah, I think we get what we want, but one doesn't have to be contingent on the other. I think just so instead of having 3 subsections under this section, I guess what it is, paragraph, we would break it into 4 just to make sure it's a little clearer. The bigger issue was the de minimis value, and I think we talked about this in one of our past opinions is, and I think it's an issue that the state's seen when they did the zero gift rule. People said, "Oh, I can't get a cup of coffee with people that I've known for 20 years. We got to go Dutch on everything." And I think we wanted to say that this board should have the ability to say, you know what, that's de minimis. It's really nothing of real value that should constitute a violation. So we're going to probably play around with that language, see what we think works. We don't want to create a loophole that somebody could, get through, but we also at the same time don't want to, inadvertently get people in trouble that really are doing anything wrong. So I think just we can find that balance. But that's language. Hopefully we'll be able to come back to the board next month.
On the procurement definition, I have been teaching, but my perception of it was that it was geared toward people who could make decisions on who doesn't do business with the city rather than just anybody. The two attorneys, I won't say who they are, but the two attorneys disagree with me, so I'm wrong. And so seeing that, I think we do need to fix it because I don't think the intent was to just get anybody in the web, but it's to deal with, we're talking about corruption. So we're talking about people who influence decision-making rather than the secretary or somebody who makes copies and et cetera. So that's what we'll be looking to fix. And I thought it good. You directors to work with the city attorney, and I think that's good. So we'll get another view, both of them look at it. And so that'll be part of our meeting next week.
And I will say, I think that going back to that old Scalia quote I just brought up, you could argue that decision approval, if there's a list, it needs to be someone related to that list. Preparation doesn't mean just making copies. But I would say, well, why don't we just be a little clearer to make sure that out.
And then did you talk about the gift ban? You didn't talk about the gift ban. That was Maridale.
Well, it would just be, the de minimis. We would say that a de minimis gift, or if the gift is determined to be of de minimis value, it would not be a violation of the code.
Yeah, I've seen Commissioner Richardson be on a broadcast with WFSU asking for donations. That could be perceived according to interpretation that he's receiving a gift because he's getting exposure. And our ordinance says he cannot receive any gift of any value. Yet things like that are really in line with what they do. It's in line with their job, and the value as such that they're receiving is de minimis. So that's what we're trying to correct here, so they can be engaged in those type of activities without being prohibited by something technical.
Did you still have?
I just wanted to add some context to the, just because I got called out on it, on being one of the lawyers, the context on the procurement employee. So that definition comes directly from the state law. And it is true, to Dwight's point, even before he was here, we have taken the position that it is very, very broad and inclusive. And one of the issues that I have found over the years is that and I've actually had conversation with the State Commission on Ethics, there really is, they sort of acknowledge that difficulty, and there's really no law that has been generated from that definition. So, these opinions that John has cites in these, in the opinions that he writes, there really isn't any opinions on that definition of procurement employee, which has made it really difficult, in my opinion, to kind of give any other view than exactly what the words say. And so that is why I have taken that position almost, pretty much from the beginning of the changes, and probably why John does too, because the words are pretty clear. It's pretty hard to get around them, and we don't have anything that helps us interpret them otherwise.
Do you want us to address the additional?
You did.
Oh, we did in the beginning. Okay, sorry, they were next. So, All right, any public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Any additional directives? I know we talked about number 5, going to city commission, but I think instead we ended up deciding to have it come back to us, decide officially we want to submit it to city commission. Any other directives? Any other?
Board want the language that we, about dealing with the contractual relationships. Is that something we want to just discuss in the future?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss that.
Okay. Do you want anything to be brought to the board?
But we're gonna bring those back.
We'll bring the opinion back, but if there's any changes to the code itself to cover these types of issues, is that something that, I know we said it's a change we could resubmit
Yeah,
along with these other changes. Did we want that language to be brought to the board at the next meeting?
I don't like that.
I think we could still certainly add that, and then we can either talk about prioritization of, I mean, if 20 different things come out of your meeting, obviously we don't want to go back with 20 again, because that muddied the waters once before, is that maybe we take priority effect this year, next year, quarterly, whatever it may be. But no, I'd love to hear all the possibilities that you think of. And then, like I said, if we need to prioritize because it ends up being too many, then we go from there.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, then Mr. Ray motions to adjourn and Mr. Smith seconds. And we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.